Obviously, it's exactly the zeitgeist of what everyone is, or certainly what a large percentage of the population is into, which you can prove that based purely on numbers. I mean, video games make more money than movies anymore.
Absolutely. It's okay. According to my son, it's I think it's a $90 billion industry, dealing with the equipment, the console, the PC games, the mobile games.
Right.
They're making a whole lot of money.
Oh, absolutely.
I hope you got a piece of it because...
Well, I mean, that's one thing, not to get a little political, but that is one thing that's a little unfortunate is video games were sort of looked down upon and just sort of ignored when the video game industry first really started gaining some traction. And because of that, unfortunately, the actors... they don't get a piece of it. There's no such thing as residuals in video games.
Wow,
and,
really?
So it's a different beast, which is frustrating when it does make that much money. But it's also something that's in flux. I mean, it is something that I think...
It will change.
I certainly hope so.
I can see everybody picketing out
right.
outside. The actors are picketing about the video games. Hey, we want our share. You deserve it because you are the fantasy. And
it is a collaboration. I mean, I certainly understand that. I also understand that, it can be difficult to have sympathy, on a topic like that because, it's not like we're doing manual labor. It's fun playtime. But it is, it is still a product that we're all working incredibly hard to make it as good as it can be.
For someone who's maybe unfamiliar with video gaming or what it is you do where there's a character that has your likeness and your voice, or how could you explain or sum up what it is you do when it comes to video games?
I would say, and sometimes I do motion capture work, which actually does portray my own image. But generally speaking, if we're talking just about voice work, I would say you are creating a character that is fully, three-dimensional, using only your voice. So you become sort of hyper aware of the way that people speak, the way they express themselves, the cadence of their voice, the musicality behind them, which everyone has. I mean, every single person has a rhythm to the way that they talk. And you just become really aware of the things that make someone unique and their own individual self, because that's how you have to, the audience is savvy enough that they're no longer going to take just, Joe Schmo filling in a voice and have it not have the right emotional connection. To be really into these, to be truly involved in these games, every person, every animator, every writer, every person that's involved in these games is now trying to make the content as great as it can be.
Right.
And, they're trying to give you the same emotional resonance that you would get with a fantastic drama on television or a fantastic movie. And,
exactly.
Yeah. So, it's doing your part to try to create a character from scratch. Yeah.
Yeah, and pulling people into the story.
Right.
And you just do that with your voice. That's amazing to me that you do that with your voice. It's a skill of great acting. If I
have to, I'm sorry, I got to call you out because,
What?
I mean, girl, that's your job. You pull people in with your voice every day.
Yeah, but I'm not telling them to do much other than listen. That's all. Now I'm blushing. Okay, so I really am blushing. I don't know what to do with that.
Hey, take it and wear it proudly.
Well, I'm really just impressed with how many different genres that you cross through. I mean, you're voiceover, you're in theater, you're in film. Which do you enjoy the most? Are you?
It's going to be a cross between film and television.
Okay.
And actually, I feel like those lines are getting blurrier. I love television because you can explore the heck out of a role. I mean, you can, when you're playing the same character for multiple seasons, you get to really dive in and get to the intricacies of a person. And I really think there's something special about that. But equally, there's nothing like a film where you can, going in the beginning and the end of the story.
Sure.
And you can just, you give it 1,000% and make it come to life. I mean,
where do you go? Where do you go when you have to play play daughter, of Star Wars, the Clone Wars, or you have to play. What was the character you played for Reflections, the award-winning film Reflections?
Her name was Carol.
Yeah,
that was a crazy film. I played this woman who had this affliction where she had this ability, like a sixth sense, where anytime she saw a reflective surface, she would see the worst thing that had ever been reflected in that surface. It would come back to her.
So
it was, she constantly walked with her head down because anywhere that she would look, she would see, this imprint of, someone that had been mugged or hit or, just something terrible that's all around her. And I think, when you're constantly bombarded by the worst in the world, that can be really terrible. And I was lucky, for instance, that was a film and not a television series, because even working on that for the limited time I did, I could see how emotionally that would affect me, because you're just suddenly hyper aware of everything terrible that could have happened around you. But I don't know. It's just every character is different. I think we all, even someone
you draw on your own personal experiences or stories from. I
think it's both. I happen to be someone who is really empathetic and compassionate. So, a lot of stuff can bring me to tears really easily.
Yeah. Ditto. Yeah.
Right? And I find even more than terrible stuff, I find beauty or, somewhere unexpected compassion gets me every time. When you see somebody do something beautiful that you were not expecting, it just breaks my heart in the best way. But equally, we do all have our own rich history that we draw from, and you try to, you can initially look at a character and you can think, there's absolutely nothing about me that is similar to this person. But, if you dig down a little bit deeper, just because we're all human, there's something that's going to tie us all together and tie you to that character. And if sometimes I think if you look at a character and you think that there's not much there that's for you or reflective of you, then maybe that's the character you actually need to be working on, because that's something you need to explore.
Wow.
So,
how much of make-believe is really not make-believe when you're when you're playing these stories and these characters? Oh,
I think any performance that gets to you, any performance that touches you, there is some honesty there. There's some truth there. If you are watching a performance or working with someone who's giving a performance where they're just trying to get to the end of the day, they're just saying their words, you can tell. And it's, they might be great actors and they still have this panache where they can pull it off and be interesting and, you can find them charismatic. But it's definitely a difference than when someone is looking at the material and trying to truly communicate and truly connect. And, at the end of the day, that's what all of us want as people, is just to be connecting.
I love that.
And I think that's also I truly think that's half of the reason that we're here, is just to be learning each other's stories and learning from each other. And the more, whether it's art or literature or music or film or, whatever it is, it's all of us just learning more about each other. And the more that you learn, I think the more compassionate you are for a larger group of people, because you see more.
Right. It spawns unconditional love.
Absolutely.
I always say that we're here to create love. That's it.
Right.
Create love in whatever capacity we have.
Totally. Which whatever. I think, I always say we're here to serve each other.
Absolutely.
And, whether... which, can sound sort of like a bigger idea, but I mean it intimately in the idea that, each of us, every person you run into serves some sort of purpose for you. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of coincidences, because it's something you need to learn, something you needed to see that day. It's, an experience that you were meant to have because you're having it.
Yeah. Wow, she's deep. Adrienne Wilkinson is deep. If you're just joining us tonight, I want to call you the Warrior Princess, or the Warrior Princess offspring is here sharing her journey in entertainment, and she's been all through it. She's been in animation, she's been in television, she's been in film. What has been the most rewarding part of your journey so far?
The entertainment industry can be super silly, super fluffy and
superficial sometimes. A little,
without a doubt. There's a lot. It's easy to make fun of because all of that, silliness does exist. But I will say that I am incredibly grateful every day that I get to work, because the experience of actually working and creating is a gift like no other.
Absolutely.
I mean, there can be headaches every day of silly stuff going on, but when you're actually in a scene and you have figured it out and you are cooking, when you just know it's
doing
working.
what you love.